This is Brother Joel, and I'm just doing a quick video concerning a scripture in the book of Acts in the New Testament that needs to be addressed. And it's dealing with a prophecy in Deuteronomy 18 that's supposed to prophesy of Jesus according to the book of Acts. And I just want to deal with that real quick. And let's just get right to it. Acts chapter 3. Because I want to show clearly that this is one of the many examples of areas in the New Testament that say something is prophesied and it simply was not. And this is a blatant false prophecy or a false interpretation of something in the Old Testament once again. And we got to talk about it because this is crucial. This is one of the areas that if you're a New Testament believer, we would read this, and this validates Christ because we said he was prophesied by Moses, and this is why. So if we prove that false and we get rid of that, that's pretty much it for the New Testament. That's that's all we can say. So let's look at that and let's examine it. Acts chapter 3. And he shall send, verse 20, and he shall send Jesus Christ, which before was preached unto you, whom the heaven must receive until the times of restitution of all things, which God hath spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. For Moses truly said unto the fathers, a prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you and your brethren like unto me. Him shall ye hear in all things whatsoever he shall say unto you. And it shall come to pass that every soul which will not hear the prophet shall be destroyed from among the people. Now you saw Acts clearly says that what Moses said is referring to Jesus. And that's speaking of Deuteronomy 18. So we see that. Now let's go look at Deuteronomy 18 and see if that's the case, because what I'm going to show you is it's impossible for that scripture in Deuteronomy 18 to be about Jesus. And you're going to see it clearly that it's impossible. There is no way Deuteronomy 18 can be referring to that. First, I want to start at Deuteronomy chapter 1, because we need to understand who Moses was talking to and addressing when he made that statement. Deuteronomy 1 and 1 says, These be the words which Moses spoke unto all Israel on this side Jordan in the wilderness, in the plain over against the Red Sea. Who's he talking to? Those in the wilderness. That's who Moses is talking to. He's not talking to anybody in the future. He's not looking at an invisible camera for people to see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later. He's talking to these people in the immediate sense who are right in his face. So let's move to 18 now. Because the thing about Deuteronomy is instruction Moses is giving. He's the prophet that's supposed to lead Israel into the land and also get them prepared to live in the land. When you get in the land, do this. Don't do that. When you get in the land, don't do this, do that. He's giving Israel teachings, instructions on how to live in the land. That's why you have all the commandments that we can read through Deuteronomy, and you have the prophecies too. Okay? So if you go to Deuteronomy 18, you have to know who is being spoken to in that sense before you get down to 15, where we get that so called prophecy of Jesus. So if you go to verse 9, this is Deuteronomy 18 and 9. Just pay close attention. It says, "When thou art come into the land." Who is the thou? The same people we just read about in chapter 1. The Israelites there in the wilderness with him. "When thou art come into the land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations." So the thee is talking about the thou. When thou art come into the land. These are the people that haven't gone into the land yet, which fits with Deuteronomy 1, right? We can see clearly who Moses is talking to. So these people he's talking to, it says, they're described as thee. It says, "which the Lord thy God giveth thee." So when he's referring to thee, he's talking to those people during his time, right in his face. Don't do this when you get in the land, right? So he's talking to people that haven't gone into the land yet. There's no possible way for him to be addressing anyone in the future, hundreds and hundreds of years later here. That thee refers to his time. So if you keep going, you can see that. It goes down. He's giving more instructions. Don't do this, don't do that. Verse 12 says, "For all that do these things are an abomination," talking about dealing with charmers and familiar spirits. "And because of these abominations, the Most High thy God doth drive them out from before thee," talking about the other nations. Before who? Before thee. These same people that are going to be led into the land of Israel. "Thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God." Now, again, that applies to the people right there in his face. They should be perfect. Again, he's instructing them how to live. When you go into the land, this is how you should be. That applies to these people. So if you go to 14 now, "For these nations which thou shalt possess hearken unto observers of times and unto diviners. But as for thee, the Lord thy God hath not suffered thee so to do." He's still talking to the people right there. This is the way you're supposed to live, not like the other nations. "I've suffered thee," you guys, to do that. The thee is the people immediately in his face. So, that in mind, if you go to verse 15, "The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren." He's going to raise up a prophet from who? From thee. Now, who did we establish the thee was? The people right there he's talking to. So he's going to raise up a prophet from amongst those same people, not from anybody hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later. So that can't apply to this prophet right here. Acts said was Jesus. But he said he would raise up unto these people that prophet. Jesus was not raised to be a prophet to these people, and he did not come from the midst of those people. He supposedly came hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later. It said a prophet from the midst of thee. And that thee is the same thee we read in verse 9 and verse 12 and verse 14. Now, one might say, well, Deuteronomy doesn't just talk about Israel in the immediate sense. It also talks about Israel as uh, universally, in which that can also apply to Israel in the future and even in Jesus' day. Because you can read in Deuteronomy also, like in Deuteronomy 4 and other places, where he said, "You," Moses talking to this same people, "you are going to be kicked out of the land and you're going to be put in captivity." So one might say, well, the thee, yeah, it's talking about these same people, but he also applies future prophecy to these same people. So this, by that reckoning, they'll say that prophet could still apply to Jesus in the future. Now that's a good point. And that's I could see somebody why they would want to say that. And that is actually true. The thee, or the people being spoken to, Moses did tell them future prophecy, but this is what we have to understand. We have to understand the difference between instruction and the consequences of going against those instructions. And you have to understand the instructions apply to these people. And it also can apply to people in the future because they're the same laws, but they must apply to these people. When you get into the consequences, sometimes Moses may say, if you don't follow these instructions I'm giving you right now, this will happen to you. You will go into captivity and you'll be oppressed, you'll be kicked out of the land. And that does not apply to these particular immediate Israelites right here in Moses' face, right? The instructions still apply to these people. Don't do this in the, like we just read, don't do this in the land, don't do that in the land. The consequences, if you do this in the land, this is going to happen. The consequences of breaking the laws can be applied to people in the future. The problem comes in if you're going to try to use that to make what we read in verse 9 through 15 future. You can't do that because we didn't read about a future um, prophecy about getting kicked out of the land or being put in captivity in those verses. We saw the instructions. Don't do this. When you go into the land, when you go into the land, don't do this, don't do that. And we can't find situations like Deuteronomy 4 where he said, and because you don't, I'm going to put you in captivity. That future prophecy part we can't see here. And we didn't read that. Okay? So you have to have context. So in the context of what we read, the thee in verse 9, 12, 14, and all the way to 15, it has to be in the immediate sense because the instructions were given to those Israelites in Moses' face. That's who that was for. So that's who that prophet should have came from. Now, you might say, well, since that the can be applied in other places to future prophecy, I'm still going to believe that 15 is a future prophecy. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at a different word then. If you want to try to apply thee to future to try to squeeze Jesus in verse 15, there is another word here that I'm going to use then. Because I understand there might be people that they don't want to apply the thee or the people that I was just talking to just to the people right here in Moses' day. They want to fit in future. Here's a word that you can't do that with. So we'll leave the word thee alone and we're going to use the word hearken. Now pay close attention. Verse 15. The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren like unto me. Unto him ye shall hearken. Now, again, I told you that thee is the same people in Moses' face he's talking to, the people in the wilderness, like Deuteronomy 1. And then Moses says, and ye shall hearken to this prophet. From the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me, unto him ye shall hearken. Now, who is this ye? Ye shall hearken. They're supposed to, whoever this ye is supposed to listen to this prophet, right? Look at the very next verse. Remember, we're dealing with whoever's supposed to hearken. We want to know what people are supposed to hearken. Because Moses said, these people, ye, will hearken to this prophet. Verse 16 lets you know exactly who that is. Let's see if it can be pulled out and placed in the future in Jesus' day. Very next verse, verse 16. Check this out. Now, again, if you go into 16 for 15, a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, like unto me, even him ye shall hearken, according to all that thou desirest. Unto him ye shall hearken, according to all that thou desirest of the Lord thy God in Horeb in the day of the assembly. Hold on, whoa. Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Unto him ye shall hearken. These people that are supposed to hearken, how? They're supposed to hearken according to all that thou, same people, according to all that thou, who's Moses talking to the ye, who's supposed to hearken to the prophet, according to all that thou desirest of the Lord thy God in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying. So these people said something. They said something in Horeb too, saying, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, neither let me see this great fire any more, that I die not. When did that happen? Now that has to do with, that's referring directly to the people that were in the wilderness. Remember when, uh, Sinai, where Moses had the Ten Commandments, and the Most High spoke, and the people were scared, and they said, "Don't let him talk to us anymore, because we'll die." Right? According to Moses, in this scripture right here in verse 16, those same people, which is the thou, those same people were supposed to hearken to that prophet. Those people that were supposed to hearken to the prophet are the same ones that were at Horeb. So there's no possible way to apply that to hundreds, thousands of years in the future. There's no way to apply it to the days of Christ. So, therefore, that prophet in verse 15 is not Christ. It is not Jesus Christ, like Acts said. Therefore, the book of Acts lied. It's a lie. How can the people in Moses' day in the wilderness that God spoke to, how can they hearken to Jesus if Jesus is that prophet? They cannot. It's a lie. That's it for Acts. So this right here, I mean, that's what you call game over. When you get to stuff like this, you come to a point. Exactly. That's exactly right. Somebody's got some splaining to do. For real. You have to humble yourself at this point. And if you're somebody out there that just from jump, without doing any type of looking into, without having an open mind, from jump, you just want to have a problem with people that say that they're quote unquote non-messianic or Tanakh only. You want to say they're wicked. You want to say they need prayer. You want to say they're antichrist and there's something wrong with them. We need humility in this time right now. The time has come for people to humble themselves and at least say, I'm going to at least look into these things, because there's no way around that. See, and the only way that you can make this future is the people in Jesus' time that hearken to Jesus, like Acts said. They're supposed to hearken to Jesus. Those people in Jesus' day, you would have to figure out how to get them all the way back to Moses' day and place them at Horeb to attempt to make this make sense. Can't do it. It's time for people to humble themselves. There's no way to twist this up. There's no way to say it's metaphoric. Is that how we're going to get out of this? Say these people are metaphoric people? We can't concoct something to get around this one, you know. So a couple more scriptures because we're not quite done. I mean, if there's a way you can get these people in the future with Jesus, then there's a, maybe maybe there's a living parable that says that somewhere, or maybe it's in the book of Enoch or something. Maybe there's some way that somebody can um, make the people at Horeb and Sinai. Maybe there's a way that we can put them in a time machine with Doc Brown and get him to Jesus' time. Maybe there's a way we can do that. So let's keep reading though, because we're going to show who exactly that prophet was. Again, it's somebody from these people. The prophet has to come from these people, and that person is Joshua. So let's prove that. So it also says in verse 17, and the Lord said unto me, they have well spoken that which they have spoken. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth. And he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. But the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name which I have not commanded him to speak, and that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. So this is another thing. If you want to make this future, this is another scripture, you can't just exclusively apply to future. It has to apply to these people, because if it wasn't talking to these people in Moses' day, then that instruction, remember I said this is all instruction, that instruction saying if anybody comes and speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet shall die, are we to assume that we're supposed to wait hundreds and hundreds of years later in Jesus' time to apply this? So all the time between Moses and Jesus, these individuals here, they didn't have to apply to this rule, and they were supposed to wait to apply this rule until Jesus' time. When it talks about do not listen to these prophets, these false prophets, that applied to them. That instruction about false prophets, you can't just place that in Jesus' time, or that means that doesn't apply to these people at all. It just applies in the future, and that wouldn't make any sense. Which means that prophet that was supposed to be hearkened to must apply to these people again. So just something else. So it said that he'll put his words in his mouth, and whosoever won't hearken unto his words is going to be required of him. 1:1. It says, now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses my servant is dead. Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people, unto the land which I do give to them, even the children of Israel. Now, it said the Lord spoke unto Joshua, because remember it said he was going to put his words in his mouth, right? So the Lord spoke to Joshua right after Moses. Because remember, Moses is giving instruction because he was supposed to get you prepared to go in the land. So why would you even need a prophet? Like it said before, they didn't want the Most High to speak anymore. So to accommodate that, the Most High sent a prophet. Again, letting you know it has to be referring to those people. So since Moses was going to die, Joshua was going to take up that mantle. So he would have that same job. So if you go to verse 16, it says, And they answered Joshua, saying, All that thou commandest us, we will do, and whithersoever thou sendest us, we will go, according as we hearken unto Moses in all things. So will we hearken unto thee. Only the Lord thy God will be with thee, as he was with Moses. That is exactly what we were promised in Deuteronomy 18. These people were promised the exact same thing. He will put his words in his mouth, and these people were going to hearken. What people? The same people that were given instructions by Moses. Same thing. And it says in verse 18, Whosoever he be that doth rebel against thy commandment, and will not hearken unto thy words, in all that thou commandest him, he shall be put to death. Only be strong and of good courage. See how all this applies to the Israelites of that day? And that matches perfectly with Deuteronomy 18. And Joshua did indeed come from those group of people. And there was a real good debate on Debate Talk for You that I seen a while back, um, called "Can Jesus Be Found in the Old Testament?" And I remember that Brother Sha'ala did a real good breakdown of this in that video, or in that debate. I just I recommend you check that out. But this is the thing: you can see clearly that prophecy didn't apply to Jesus. That makes Acts 3 a lie, and there's no way around it. Now, how can you not put down the New Testament after that? Just wanted to bring that out right quick. And like I said, uh, it comes to where we just got to humble ourselves. I had to do it. I had to take my medicine and be like, that's just false. And I expect more and more people to come to that conclusion the more this information gets out. And I'm seeing it happen. And we can't keep running from it. We got to deal with it. So I hope this enlightened you. I hope this was something that helped you out. If you're a person that loves the truth, y'all have a good rest of your day. Shalom.